Today we have Pastor John with us to share God's word. Let's welcome Pastor John.
Amen. The Lord is good and His mercy endures forever. Amen. It's such a joy for me to bring God's word this morning. And let me begin with wishing all the fathers a very happy Father's Day. I'm not here this morning to preach on how to be a father. Hopefully, in a few more years I will learn at least few things how to be a father. Praise God for our fathers and thank the Lord for their investment into their lives. I can boldly say this morning standing here, if I'm standing here, it's because of my parents, my father and his life. Their life has motivated and challenged me to be in the Lord, to serve Him and to live my life for His glory. And I'm really happy for my fathers, and hopefully each and every one of you who are seated here, you're proud and happy about your father. Amen? Well, this morning I'm going to bring a reminder to all of us from the book of Daniel. But before we go ahead and read through the scriptures from Daniel, let me give a background about what the book of Daniel is trying to convey. What's the message that the book of Daniel is having for us this morning? Well, we all know that God miraculously worked through Moses to deliver people from Egypt. God performed almost 10 plagues in Egypt and brought the people from Egypt to the promised land, that is the land of Canaan. God worked 10 plagues in Egypt. God miraculously provided, delivered them in the wilderness journey. God opened the seas and the rivers. God opened the rocks and brought them waters. God worked so many things to deliver this people, this group of people from Egypt, and bringing them to this promised land that was flowing with milk and honey. They were in this land for a few years. If I'm saying few dates, if you're not getting the dates, please don't worry about those. But over the period of time, because of these people committed sin, the people were carried away as slaves. In the year 722 BC, people were carried away as slaves to Assyria. And there was another group of people that was in the land of Judah where the temple was there. That group of people also were carried away as slaves in the year 586. All these things happened. Now, when the temple was destroyed, when the people whom God so carefully, so preciously delivered from Egypt and placed them in the land of Canaan, and now this group of people are scattered. Their temple, their worship place is destroyed. And now these people are slaves in another nation. The people who were there, they were killed. The things that belonged to the land were destroyed. And the whole land that was flowing with milk and honey now stands in rubbles. Now all these people have a big question. They have few questions. Their faith in God is shaken. And they have these questions in their mind. Is a God not greater than the other gods? Is a God less powerful than the other gods? Is a God not able to deliver us from our enemies? Isn't a God sovereign over the nations and sovereign over the situations that are around us? These are the questions that are running in the minds of those people who escaped this destruction, or those people who are as slaves in Babylon. And this morning, as you are seated here, if you have similar kind of questions, is my God all-powerful? Is my God able to deliver me from any situation? Is my God able to protect me from any kind of situations? And beyond everything, is my God sovereign? Is my God all-powerful? Let me tell you, if you are asking these questions, and if you are running through these questions in your mind because of the things that you faced in your life, because of the unforeseen things that came in your family, in your personal life, it might be death, it might be debt, it might be anything in your life. And if you have all these questions, let me tell you, today's word is for you. And I'm going to take you through this scripture and experience how your Father is. How, as a father, God demonstrated himself to his chosen people in a foreign nation. And I want you to walk through these scriptures. I'm going to take you through from Daniel chapter 1 to 6. I want you to observe who your father is. I have entitled today's meditation as God is able. God is able. How God is able? I want you to turn to Daniel chapter 1. The stories in the book of Daniel are very familiar for us. Even if you haven't heard it in the church, definitely you would have heard about these stories in a Sunday school. You might have heard about these four men, the four popular men, that is Daniel, number one, and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. You would have heard about these four men. You would have heard about these men in the furnace of fire. You might have heard about Daniel in the lion's den. If you're going to just focus on these four men in the book of Daniel, let me tell you, we are missing the main picture. If you're going to just focus on these four men, we're going to miss the message of book of Daniel. We're going to miss out a main picture because look at these four men and you're going to think this is all about the book of Daniel is. You're going to miss because these four men are like the junior artists in a movie. And we're going to miss out the picture, who is the hero. And in book of Daniel, it is not about these four men, it is about the God of these four men. It is about the God of Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And let me tell you, he is the God of you. And he is the father of each and every one of us who are seated here. I'm going to take you through three familiar incidents from Daniel chapter 1, 3, and 6. And I want you to observe a few things as we go through. Let's read from verse number 4 following. Select only strong, healthy, and good-looking young men. And he said, make sure they are all well-versed in every branch of learning, and are gifted with knowledge and good judgment, and are suited to serve in the royal palace. Train these young men in the language and literature of Babylon. The king assigned them a daily ration of food and wine from his own table. They were to be trained for 3 years, and then they were to enter the royal service. Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah were four of the young men chosen, all from the tribe of Judah. The chief of staff renamed them with these Babylonian names. Daniel was named as Belshazzar, Hananiah as Shadrach, Mishael as Meshach, Azariah was called Abednego. Listen, church. Now the first thing is, now the land is destroyed, the people are scattered, and some people are taken as slaves. Some people are those people who are wise enough, those people who are good looking, those people who are skilled. So now among all the captives, there are these four men who are chosen from Judah. So now they are in Babylon, they are in a foreign nation, and they in the foreign nation, they are trained in the languages of Babylon. Not just the language, they are being trained in the literature of Babylon. They are trained in all the other learnings of Babylon. They are being changed. They have been changed into the likeness of a Babylonian. They have been trained to become like a Babylonian people. And the height of their transformation, the height of the influence of Babylonians upon them is seen in the third change that happens in the change of the name itself. They have been changed because these days most of our names doesn't carry much meaning or doesn't really carries a lot of meaning in our name. But in ancient time, the names carried a lot of meaning into it as well as it professed who they serve. And here, these four men have a unique name, but their names are changed, which signifies the change that they are going through. The change that they are going through in the language, literature, and in their own name itself. In the midst of all these things that are happening, these four men are making something very remarkable. These four men are making something very remarkable. And number one, the first thing that they do is, in verse number 8, we read like this. It says, but Daniel was determined. Daniel resolved not to defile himself. He made sure that he will not defile himself. Okay, they've already got aligned with the literature, the language, and even the name. But a striking thing is, they did not say no to the language, they did not say no to the literature, but here as they stand, they say no to the food that is provided from the king's table. Let me tell you, it is a food that is fit for a king. The food that comes from a king's table, that's what they are saying no to. Because what we can see is even from chapter number 1 and chapter number 5. In both the thing, because there was an understanding, there was a belief with the kings that they are the providers. They are the people who are the source of provision of food or anything to his own people. So now as Daniel and his friends stand there and say no to the food that comes from the king's table, they are saying, you are not the source of any provision. You are not the one who is going to provide, and only by eating this, we are going to survive. They know. Because Daniel and his friends understood who their God was. Daniel and his friends understood who their father was. Because if they wouldn't have understood that it is their God who is the provider and he is the source of all creation, they would have taken this bold step saying, let's not take food from the king's table. Because if they're not going to be fair, if they're not going to be healthy, they will be killed. But in midst of all these things, they took a stand saying, we are not going to defile ourselves. When they understood that one, they were able to stand for God. And something very interesting is, when they stood the stand for God, when they resolved to stand for God, verse number 9 says this one. It says, now God had caused the chief of the staff they found favor in his sight. Once they stood their ground, saying that they will stand for God, that they will not defile themselves. When they took that stand, when they resolved to do that one, God caused the chief of the staff to be favorable towards these friends. And in chapter number 1, at the end of the chapter, verse number 17 says, God gave these 4 young men an unusual aptitude for understanding of every aspect of literature. And in verse number 19, the king talked with them, and no one impressed him as much as Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. So they entered the royal service. What I want to share from this particular first incident is, number 1, that Daniel and his friends understood who their God was, because that caused them to stand their ground for God. When they stood their ground for God, God caused favor upon these 4 men. God gave them the wisdom, understanding, and aptitude that was not matching to anyone in that land. And as we go through this one, I want you to keep in your mind those questions that these people were asking at the beginning. This group of people who are in exile asking, is God all-powerful? Is God sovereign over everything? Is God the God above all gods? You will see the answers for these questions as we go through. As we read through this one, and as we look at how God uses this young man. Because every time God does something, the credit doesn't go to this young man. Always the credit goes to the God of these young men. Number 1, this young man stood for God, and God caused favor to these men. Number 2, in chapter number 2, we see something very interesting. The king is perplexed. The king is very anxious about the dream that he saw. And now he asks, can anyone say what I dreamt? And also, can you say, what did the dream mean? Can you interpret the dream? Okay, I'm not taking you through the end chapter 2, but I'm going to just give you the glimpses of what is there in chapter number 2. The king says, can you tell me what did I dream and can you interpret it? I think I can't say anyone's dream, what did you dream last night? And you, by the same way, you can't say what did I dream last night, and you also can't give an interpretation. And the king poses such a critical thing for these people. And because there were no one to say the dream and interpret it, the king gave an order, let all the wise men be killed. But Daniel comes forward and says, give me a day, I'll tell you the dream as well as the interpretation. And I want you to look into chapter number 2 and verse number 19. That night, the secret was revealed to Daniel in a vision. See, no one could say, all the magicians, all the wise men of the land said, this is impossible. No one as ever in the history has posed such a question or such a thing. But you're asking us to give us your dream and interpret it. But here we see God revealed the dream and the vision to Daniel. And God gives not just the dream, but even the interpretation. And in the interpretation, we all know this one, because whenever we see Daniel, the bigger picture that we see about Daniel is about the big statue. The statue that was made of gold, silver, iron, and partly of iron and clay. And that's the vision that the king sees, and that's the vision that Daniel interprets to the king. And now at this point, I want you to understand something. You see, is God sovereign over nations? Is God sovereign over everything that happens in your life? This is the answer here. Here God says, see, I know. God reveals to the king what's going to happen in this time, what's going to happen in the days to come, and what's going to happen even in the future. So this reminds each and every one of us that our God, whom you and me serve, is sovereign over every situation. Remember this, your God knows the end from the beginning. He knows what's going to happen in the future. He knows now. Because nothing is hidden from God and nothing is secret in the presence of God. And today, as you're seated here, let me tell you, God has a plan and He is working in your life according to that plan. Sometimes we think, how is this possible? Why did this happen? And I always have shared this one, how God works in our life. Almost all of us here would have played the puzzle game, right? We'd have had a picture and there was a puzzle that we need to put everything together. Sometimes when we have the pieces of the puzzle in a box and we have a picture to put it together, we randomly pick one piece of it and we think, and we just look at this piece of puzzle and the picture that we are supposed to make it. Sometimes we think, I think this piece of puzzle doesn't fit this picture. And sometimes when you think like that, you just place that random piece of puzzle separately and try to put the other pieces of the puzzle together. And when you finish putting everything together, there would be a spot in that puzzle, the picture that you're putting in, there would be a gap. And in that gap, the piece of puzzle which you said doesn't fit. You take that one and put it there, and you will see that the picture is complete. Similarly, in our lives, we don't understand the present situation that we are going through. We might ask a lot of questions, why? But let me tell you, God knows the end from the beginning. So He knows if I place this piece of puzzle in your life, it will connect it. Unless that piece of puzzle is there in your life, it won't connect you to the next phase of your life. So today, if you have this question, is God all-powerful? Let me tell you, He is more than enough for you, and He is in control of your life, and He is in control of everything that happens in your life, in your family's life. When Daniel interpreted the dream of the king and gave an interpretation for it, this is what we see in Daniel chapter 2 and verse number 46. Then King Nebuchadnezzar threw himself down before Daniel and worshipped him. And he commanded his people to offer sacrifices and burn sweet incenses before him. The king said to Daniel, truly, Truly I say this one, your God is the God of gods. Your God is the Lord, and He is the revealer of mysteries. Going back to the question that these people asked, is there a God? Is our God all-powerful? Is our God able to reveal the mysteries? Now, God is making a pagan king to confess it, saying, Daniel, look, it is your God. He is the God of gods. Look, your God is the Lord of lords, and He is the revealer of mysteries. Remember, church, as you're seated here, God, your God, is a God of gods, and He's above everything, and He can reveal anything that happens. But let me tell you, the way that you have understood your God will make you to know Him more. The more that you know Him, the more that you will love Him. The more that you love Him, the more that you will live for Him. Chapter number 3 is very interesting and a very familiar incident again. Chapter number 3, the king places a golden statue and orders the entire nation, the whole of his kingdom, to bow down and worship this golden idol. The entire nation is bowing down. At the sound of the music, at the sound of the harp and lyre, the entire nation is falling down prostrate before this golden idol and worshiping him. But here there are 3 young men who doesn't bow down. Let me just remind you about what happened in chapter number 1. They were educated in the literature for 3 years. They were trained in the language for 3 years. And they are being trained in all the ways of the Babylonians. But when it comes to worshipping an idol, you see that though all the things that happened in their life hasn't led them to change what their faith was. We live in a world, there are people who are working in a corporate field. We have a world that is so corrupt. But many a times, we are so complacent, or we get carried away by the people, what they do. We get carried away by the people. Sometimes when we are in a group, when everyone in a group, when they are doing something that is not right, we also get carried away with them. That's the thing that happens. But look at these 3 young men here. Whatever the things that are around them hasn't led them to influence them so much. The language hasn't let them influence their faith in God. The literatures, everything that they studied hasn't influenced them. The faith that they had in God. Among all these men, among all the people, they would have easily been carried away because everyone is doing, let me also do it. But these 3 young men did not do that one. They stood their ground. How many of you have seen a lotus? How many of you seen a lotus? Yes. Have you seen where the lotus is? A lotus is not in a clean water. A lotus you can't see in an ocean or a sea. You see lotus usually in a pond. And a pond is not, usually it's not clean. It's filled with, it's always dirty. But you look at this flower, you look at this lotus. The lotus is always above the water. The water is dirty, yes, true. But the flower is always above that water. So it doesn't unless you take the water and pour it into the flower, the water doesn't enter into that flower. Similarly, you and me live in a world that is filled with filthiness. We can't escape it, and we can't be in a closed door in a house. We have to go, we have to work, we have to be here. That's our roots. But let me tell you, those roots should not influence us, so that the things of this worldliness doesn't come into our lives. So you and me, we live in this world, but we don't belong to this world. Sometimes we get confused with these 2 terms as well. Sacred and secular. Sacred and secular. We get confused with this one. I am doing a secular job. Let me tell you, the opposite to sacred is not secular. The opposite to sacred is profane. So either you do sacred thing or you do a profane thing. So if you are working in any field, if you're an engineer, if you're a doctor, if you're a software engineer, if you're a minister, whoever you are, wherever you are called for a sacred purpose. Because secular means worldliness. You and me are not called to follow the pattern of this world, but we are called to influence this world. We are called to be the lights. We are called to be the light in the darkness. So today, wherever you are, church, whatever you are doing, you have to remember this one. You and me are called to serve a God, and we are in a sacred work. We are in a sacred work, and we are called to stand for God wherever we are. But today, there's a problem with the church, the problem with the so-called, the only Christians. This is a problem. We call ourselves as a Christian, but we don't live a life of Christians. We don't project, and unfortunately today, we don't reflect Christ in everyday works of our life as well. It's not just those people who are so-called believers. It happens even with the ministers of God. So today, that's a challenge for each and every one of us. Today, as we are here, as we read through these lessons, are we able to stand like this young man without compromising? Without compromising. Because when you and me say yes to follow God, there is another way to say we have to say no to the things that are there in this world. So your yes means no to certain things. So as you have said yes to follow God, as you have said yes to serve Him, as you have said yes that I will follow Him whatever it may cost, let me tell you, there are things you have to say no. And I need not to say what are the things that you need to say no, because we studied that one last Sunday. We need to be led by the Spirit. And only then we will be able to say no to the things that we have to say no. And the prayer of these three young men has really attracted me. And because that's the problem of the church again. That's the problem of many of us who live for Christ. And I want you to look at this verse, chapter 3, verse number 16 following. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to the king, "We do not need to defend ourselves before you, O king. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God whom we serve is able to save us." He is able to save us. All of us pray this prayer. We always confess this one. We have that faith. But the second part of the prayer is something very interesting. It says, "He will rescue us from your power, your majesty. But even if He doesn't do that one, we want to make it clear to you, O majesty, that we will never serve your gods or worship the gold statue you have set up." Most of us, we pray like this: "Lord, if you're going to deliver me from this particular situation, I'll give so much of offering. Or I'll fast for so many days. I'll shave my head," or whatever it is. Most of the times we have this bargaining thing. We go to this barter system. What happened? You give this, I do this one. You do this for me, I will do this for you. But let me tell you, look at this prayer of these three young men. They say, if God delivers us, God is able. We know our God is able to deliver us. But king, no. No this one. Even if He doesn't deliver, we won't do this one. And how many of your prayers are like this, church? How many of you pray saying, "God, even if you do this one, even if you don't do this one, I still love you"? How many of you have prayed that one? "Lord, you give this to me, or you do this in my life. If you do this, I love you. Even if you don't do this one, I still love you." I think that has to be the prayer. Because we should not come into the presence of God for the blessings of God, but you and me need to seek God for who God Himself is. Because it's not just God loves us by giving us the money, by giving us the positions, by giving us favor. But God has already demonstrated who He is, what He is. On the cross, He has demonstrated what He has done to us. And the Father has lavished such a great love upon us. And what still makes us to pray such a selfish prayer sometimes? Today, remember, these three young men knew who their God was. That's how they were able to stand before the king and say, King, remember, even if my God is not able to deliver, we are not going to bow down. Do you and me have such a great faith? Do you and me know who our God is? Do you know who really your God is? Get to know church. Get to know that your God is an all-powerful God. For Him, nothing can stop Him. When you stand for God, you remember that He is there always for you. He's always there to deliver you. Look at the next few verses in chapter number 3. The king gets so much, he's furious. And he commands, let the fire be heated up 7 times more. And the fire is heated up 7 times, and these young men are thrown. When these young men are thrown, the men who threw them, they're caught up in this heat and they are killed. But these 3 young men are walking in the fire as if they are walking in the cool of ice. They're walking. They're not burned, they're not killed. They're walking. They're walking in the fire. And not just 3 of them are walking. The king looks at them and says, there is not just 3 men, there is the 4th one. The 4th one looks like the Son of Man. Sometimes you and me don't understand, really can't comprehend the way that God leads us. Sometimes God doesn't stop us from fire. God leads us into the fire. But let me tell you, in the fire, God will be there. And that's how our God is. If God would have just stopped them from the fire, what happened later wouldn't have been spread around the nations. But because God allowed them into the fire, God was there and the king was able to witness it. They walked into the fire. When they came out of the fire, the word says here, there was not even the smell of the fire upon them, not even a single hair of their head was burnt. To say that with a God, nothing is impossible. It's once again, it reflects saying, God is able to deliver us, not just the fire, but He is able to deliver us from anything. To the questions of the people in the beginning, here is an answer saying, even in the midst of fire, God is there. It doesn't mean when there is a fire, when there is a problem, God is not present. Sometimes that's what we think. When we are in a problem, we think it's only us. I think we are facing this problem, we are facing this trouble alone. But let me tell you, even in the fire, God is there. You can see Him as the 4th person. You can see Him as God who is there for you. When He's there, He won't let the fire touch you. When He's there, He won't let anything that is around you to harm you. He's there for us. The things that has taken toll in your life, it might be finance, it might be relationship, it might be, unexpected things that have happened in your family. Let me tell you, God is in control. Even in all these things that you went through, you were not going alone. You were not walking alone. God was there. God was there. If God wouldn't have been there with you, you would have been burnt by that fire. If God wouldn't have been there, the fire would have made into ashes. But because God was there, that problem was not able to destroy you. If you are sitting here this morning, it's because of His grace, because He has carried you, because He was with you, church. The words that people spoke, the things that happened around you did not burn you, did not let you down, but did not make you to be dead, because God was with you. And I want you to look at what the king says here in chapter number 3, verse number 29. Therefore I make this decree, If any people, whatever their race or nation or language, speak a word against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they will be torn limb from limb, and their houses will be burned into the heap of rubbles. There is no other God who can rescue like this. This, a pagan king, a pagan, one who worships a pagan god, he confesses saying, there is no other God like the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, saying that the God of these three men is the only God. As we look into chapter number 4 and 5, you see God once again revealing to the king and to Daniel what's going to happen next. What's going to happen to the king? What's going to happen to his kingdom? That's what we see in chapter number 4 and 5. God revealing himself. We saw God was able to help this young man to find favor in the sight of those chief officials. And these young men were promoted. They were given all the wisdom and they were promoted. And God revealed the dreams to Daniel in visions. And he said, I am able because I am the one who orchestrates everything that happens. I'm the one who is in control of everything. And in chapter number 3, we saw that these young men were delivered from fire, saying that God is able to deliver from any kind of situation. And chapter number 4 and 5, once again, God reveals what's going to happen next, what's going to happen to the king who thought he is the mightiest of all. When he thought he is the mightiest and he is the king of everything, God struck him down. God struck him down that he became like an animal. And when we come to chapter number 6, we see about another familiar passage that is about Daniel. When you look into chapter number 6, verse number 10. But when Daniel learned that the law had been signed, he went home and knelt down as usual in his upstairs room, and with his windows open towards Jerusalem, he prayed 3 times a day, just as he had always done, giving thanks to God. Look at this Daniel. He knew that if anyone worships or prays to any other god than the king himself, they'll be thrown into the lion's den. And Daniel, when he gets to know all these things, he doesn't stop. He doesn't stop worshiping his God. He doesn't stop praying. He still, even after knowing everything, he goes boldly and prays. And he prays and worships his God. And the result of this one is he ends up in the lion's den. He ends up in the lion's den because he knew who his God was. He was not ready to bow down. He was not ready to stop worshiping his God. The thing that Daniel did was, to knowing everything, all the things that would come upon himself, still he resolved to worship his God. And we all know that he was in the lion's den. He was in the lion's den all through the night. And the lions couldn't do anything because God shut the lion's mouth. This is what I want you to see. The next day morning, the king comes running. Verse number 19. Very early the next morning, the king got up and hurried to the lion's den. When he got there, he called out in anguish, Daniel, look at this, what he says. Daniel, the servant of the living God, was your God, whom you serve so faithfully, able to rescue you from the lion's mouth? And Daniel answered, long live the king. My God sent his angels to shut the lion's mouth, so that they would not hurt me, for I have been found innocent in his sight, and I have not wronged you, your majesty. And look at a hymn, a poem, or a song that a pagan king writes to the God of Israel. Look at verse number 25, the last part. He says, the king Darius sent his message to the people of every race and nation and language throughout the world, saying, peace and prosperity to you. I decree that everyone throughout my kingdom should tremble and fear before the God of Daniel, for he is the living God, and he will endure forever. His kingdom will never be destroyed. His rule never ends. He rescues and saves his people. He performs miracles and signs and wonders in heavens and on earth. He has rescued Daniel from the powers of the lion. Look at what? Yes, the God rescuing Daniel from the lion's mouth was important. That is important, and that is a miracle. But beyond God rescuing Daniel from the lion's mouth, what happened after that is very important. What the king did is very important, because it is through the pagan king that God is making him to confess that he alone is God. He alone is sovereign. He alone is powerful. It is through this king that you see, because every time that God does something, you see there are people who profess it. Usually the other people who are in other faith, they profess it. You see in Elijah, the widow from Zarephath, God performed a miracle through this prophet. The widow of Zarephath says, he looks at Elijah and said, now I know you are the man of God and the words of the Lord is in your mouth. That's what the pagan women confesses to Elijah. And when we come to New Testament, we see when Jesus raised the son of the widow of Nain, the woman confesses that he is the Lord. Today, the challenge is for you and me. The more that we experience who our God is, the more that we have experienced the God's power in our life, the more that we experience the Father in our lives, we will be able to stand for God. We'll be able to stand for God, and the people around us, they can come forward and confess that your God is a great God. Today, that's the challenge, my church. That's the challenge for each and every one of us. Can the people around us, can they look at our lives? Can they look at the way that we live and the way that we carry our lives? Can they look at us and say, your God is a living God? Can the people around us and say, your God is a God of all gods? Are we living a life like that? Are we living as the children of a Father in heaven? The Father has demonstrated His great love upon each and every one of us. But the call is, are we demonstrating that we belong to this true Father? Are we demonstrating it? As famous, we have heard about this quote always. Preach the gospel. If necessary, use words. Preach the gospel. If necessary, use words. Which means you and me need to be living the gospel so that people will see it and they will confess it. They will come forward and say, your God is the God of gods. Your God is able to deliver. Your God is able to heal. Your God is able to rescue anyone. Can people confess it through your life and my life? These young men, they stood for God. They stood for God whom they knew. Today, you and me, are we ready to stand for Him? Are we ready to stand for Him? Are we ready to live for Him? As I said earlier, let me repeat this again. You and me are called in a sacred calling. Either you can be in a sacred profession or in a profane profession. You and me are called to live for God wherever we are, however we are. But can we project Christ in our lives and through our lives? And let me conclude with this story. During the times when the persecution was very strong in Russia, the Christians were persecuted terribly, and they were asked to denounce their faith in Christ. A group of soldiers went to a particular village with a captain, and they caught all the Christians and they kept them in a dungeon. And one particular evening, the captain of that army decided, if you are going to deny Christ, I'm going to let you go. If you're not going to deny Christ, if you're going to hold on to Christ, I'm going to kill you. So there were hundreds of people who were lined up. There were hundreds of people who were lined up so that they will come forward, denounce their faith, and they'll move forward. So the commander of an army kept a poster that was there of Jesus that was kept there. He said, if you don't believe, if you are going to renounce Christ, you need to come and say, I don't believe in Jesus anymore. Spit on this poster and walk forward. If you're not going to do this one, I'm going to kill you. So there were a couple of people who came forward, looked at the poster. They were Christians, but because the fear that was in their life, they spat on that poster, they left. Happened one after another, it happened. A family came, a father and mother and an young child of 12 years old. She also came with the parents. The parents went forward. The father went, he spat on the poster, he left. Mother came, she did the same, she left. Now comes the young daughter, 12 years old, she comes forward. And the father and mother standing on the other side saying, come on, spit on it, come this way. But to the shocking of everyone who was standing there, this young girl kneels down there near the poster, takes her t-shirt, wipes all the spat, all the thing that was there on the poster. She starts wiping, and the parents are saying, what are you doing? And the commander of the army, he is also shocked. What are you doing? And she takes her t-shirt and wipes the poster, starts kissing it and says, I love you, Jesus. When she did that particular thing, the commander was taken back. And he asked, what made you to do this one? When your parents and all the people that went before you, they were afraid of their life. They were afraid of their life, and they did spit on it and left. What made you? And she said, I know that my Jesus, without any fear, he gave his life for me on the cross, and he loves me so much, and I love him. And that made, on that evening, that made an impact on that commander. He left the rest of the people, he let them go. And after years later, this commander, who was witnessed by this 12 years old girl, started serving the Lord. That's the impact of that one little girl. And we have a lot of testimonies like that. Witnessed lot of things like that. But today, church, can you and me make an impact in this world that we are living in? Can we create an impact? Can we live as a true children, sons and daughters of the great Father? Let me tell you, in all the things that you're going through, your God is able to set you free. Your God is in control of everything. Your God is sovereign over the situations. As I said, He knows your end from the beginning. So whatever you're going through, let me tell you, He knows. He will guide you through. Even when you walk through the valley of the shadow of death, remember, you have a great shepherd who is with you. His rod and staff, they will comfort you. We have a great shepherd. We have a great Father who is able in every situations of your life. The greatest call for you and me this morning is, can you and me stand like this young man, resolving not to defile ourselves, standing and professing God and our faith at any place, even if it is going to cost us fire, if it's going to cost us to be in the fire. Are we ready to worship the Lord anywhere, anytime, at any cost, even if it has cost our life to be in the lion's den? Are we ready? Are we ready to pray a prayer like this? Lord, my God is able to deliver me. Even if He is not, I'm not going to bow down. Are we ready to do that one, church? If you're ready to make that commitment, say that to God. Would you just close your eyes and look to God? And we're going to ask God to help us this morning. Lord, would you help us? Would you help us to know you more, to stand strong and bold for you, O God? Would you help us, Lord? Would you help us wherever we are, wherever we are working, O God? Wherever we are working, wherever we are ministering, Lord, wherever we are serving you, help us to stand bold. Help us not to be help us not to get compromised with the things of this world, oh God. Help us to stand out. Help us to make a difference. Help us to, Lord, bring a change. Would you use us, Lord? In all these things, church, remember, you have a great God. He's the God of gods. He's the Lord of lords. He's a mighty God. He's there for us. In your situations that you're going through in your life, in your family, He's able to do amazing things. Are you ready to stand for Him?